You've heard AM, you've heard FM. Now, tune into DM Radio, the world's longest running show about data. Each week, host Eric Kavanaugh interviews the brightest minds in the world of information management. Want to be on a show? Send an email to info@dmradio.biz. Now, here's your host, Eric Kavanaugh.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back once again to the longest running show in the world about data. It's called DM Radio. Yours truly, Eric Kavanaugh here. What an all-star cast we have today, folks, plowing right through year 16 on data management radio. That's right, way back in the days of DM Review. Some of you in the industry may recall that publication. That's where the name comes from. I pitched it to them, and they loved it. We've been rocking and rolling ever since. And today, folks, we're really going to talk about a major inflection point in the industry of data. For the longest time, we've been using data warehouses, OLAP cubes, all sorts of data constructs to better understand our business, to better understand what's going on in our organizations, to understand how much product we're selling, where's the profit coming from, where should we go next. All these different business use cases are fueled by data. But historically, there's been all this engineering and all this code that has to be written and has to be maintained and examined and understood. And there's this whole low code movement that's coming along. But I'm like some of the old timers. I like the low code to pro code, as some of folks talk about it. You want low code for the business users, but pro code for the professionals who want to go in and tinker with stuff and tighten things up and get it just right. So it's really the marriage of those two worlds that's bringing about tremendous change in our industry. And, you know, I remember, quite honestly, this is 2001. So 22 years ago, I worked for a consulting firm in Austin, Texas called Damon Consulting, and we talked about BI for the masses, business intelligence for the masses. We wanted to get more folks out there using the tools, business intelligence, to make better decisions in their business. And it took a long time. We talked about that in 2001. It was like 2011 when it kind of started getting somewhere. But now we're at this massive inflection point where low code technologies are strong enough and powerful enough to fuel these data warehouses. And what does that mean? That means we can get lots of business people rolling up their sleeves, getting into the data, playing with the data like clay to make the formations they want. Yes, you'll have some IT support. Yes, you'll want some people checking things to make sure it all works properly. But it's like your car. You don't have to know how your car works to know that it works, right? You have to take it to the shop now and again to get them to look at stuff. But even now, they just plug that little thing in and go, okay, this is the problem. That's the problem. That's kind of where we're getting with the data management world. And that is very good news. So, folks, we have an all-star cast. Merv Adrian, formerly of Giga, Forrester, Gartner. This guy is an analyst of excellence for decades now in our industry. Very pleased to have him on the call today. We have Simon Whiteley calling in from London, and Raj Baines of Prophecy calling in from I think the United States somewhere. So we got the Pan-European Council. Merv is in London right now. I'm sorry, Merv is in Paris.
Paris,
I'm in England.
And Raj is on Tatooine, I think.
Virtually, I am there. Physically, I must be stuck here till Elon gets his rocket.
That's right. That's right. He got left behind. It's okay, but we got a big data pipeline connecting those two worlds, so we're going to get it all together here. And that's the topic. So data pipelines. I'll throw it over to Merv first to kind of comment. You've been in this industry a long time. You know that the basics still matter. You can't just forget that there's underpinnings beneath these nice GUIs out there. You have to focus on the fundamentals still. But if you do that, you can get to value, 100 times faster than you could 10 years ago. Am I right?
Well, yeah, and your enthusiasm is exciting, and those of us who've been at this a while have always shared that. We're always believing we're going to help change the world. BI and analytics have been the gift that keeps on giving, certainly for the vendor community all that time. I think in every year since I became an analyst, it was one of the top 3 investment targets by users, because we always believe if we get to the data, we're going to do great things. We're going to change things faster. We're going to improve our businesses, transform them. It's a perpetual mantra. And yeah, I think there's more reason for enthusiasm about the reach of those tools today than there ever has been. But, I will be the curmudgeon for a moment here and say, with great simplicity can come great risk. And it's really important for us to use these things consciously. We can have enormous leverage, but leverage can be a good thing or a bad thing. So, I want to make sure we remind folks Don't ignore the basic principles just because the tools got dramatically easier and more powerful. Use them, but use them wisely, Grasshopper.
Yeah, I love it. And I'll throw it over to Simon Whiteley, dialing in from the UK, and I'll do my favorite Yoda imitation. Do or do not. There is no try. Right? You got to roll up your sleeves and get her done. You're a coder, so you're on the pro code side, but you certainly appreciate the value of analytics. And I think that from your experience, you're probably seeing what I'm seeing, which is that the footprint of this industry and its influence is expanding like wildfire today. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, I mean it's been a funny time in the past 10 years. So let's scope it right down to that and talk about being a warehouse developer, kind of a BI person, all of that kind of thing. In the past 10 years has changed so much. So when I started my career, kind of go back, I was building lots of DTS pipelines. I was, in SQL Server, I was pulling boxes and I was dragging things. And eventually I turned into SSIS and it was great. And I was dragging lots of stuff. And that was like a way of making code accessible to people without having, because like generally data people didn't really write that much code. You wrote a load of SQL and then you're like, I need to move a load of things around. I need to make it fast, and didn't really have those coding skills to hand. So people adopted SSIS. But what you're tending to see is, as there's trends in the industry, you kind of move from, there's things have gone mainstream. We've actually figured out how to work with a certain technology. It's got to such a point of mainstream. Actually, we can build tools on top of it. We can make it low code. We can make it accessible. We can bring more people to the party. And then you realize you're getting to the point when those technologies are starting to creak a little bit. So from my side, as a BI person who was very kind of, on-prem, I built a lot of SQL servers. I did lots of, kind of bare metal tin building data things. And then moving to the cloud and switching over from doing essentially server-based processing to using decentralized tools to parallel processing, moving things to Spark, there's suddenly a big mindset shift of going, okay, I'm building a lake now. I'm dealing with various different file formats. There's a lot of maturity around how you build a lake. And honestly, the first lakes we were building, you've got to essentially build a load of code around things to get it to work at all. It didn't have the maturity there. It didn't have the tools and the processes. And essentially, we're still trying to solve the same problem, right? We're still going and getting some data and shaping it and making it accessible to the business. But being able to do data quality and data management and governance and build a data catalog and all those things just didn't exist. So people have been building and coding around these things and just essentially stitching through the gaps. And then there's another technology shift. So we went from databases into lakes into now lake houses. And lake houses is essentially it's a shift enabled by a better generation of file formats. So Merv mentioned Iceberg, you've got Hudi. I work a lot with the Delta Foundation, so I use Delta Lake a lot. And they're all the similar idea, right? It's a way of saying, take something that's really, really performant way of doing analytics like Parquet, but then we need transactions and we need to be able to roll back backups and we need to be able to do things like merge statements and enable SQL code to allow people to come to the party. But that's another shift. So 4 or 5 years ago, we were building lake houses, but we're building lake houses by using what technology was there and then having to code around it. And you can, again, bridge that gap because it's another technology shift.
Right.
And now we're finally reaching the point, kind of 3, 4, 5 years later, where it's become more mature, it's become stable. The tools are getting to the point when actually go, right, it's stable enough. We can build a UI over it. We can bring other people to the party. We can make it more accessible. No doubt in 2, 3, even 1 year, there'll be another technology shift and then we'll go back to having to code things if you want to need that, and then that'll mature. But it's kind of that pattern we've been seeing of you're on the cutting edge, you're going to have to code around problems. As things mature, you've got more opportunity to bring people to the party, to expand it, to let more of the business in. And there's waves. Industry happens in waves, right?
Yeah, these are all very, very good points that you're making. And it is a bit frustrating, I think, for the CIO or the chief data officer, for example. You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, for sure. And I'm in the media, and so we're always kind of looking past. Like, we don't want to talk about what's happening now. We want to talk about what's happening next. But we never know exactly what's happening next. I mean, look at how these large language models turn the whole industry sideways. All the major vendors we talk to are talking about that stuff now. So obviously it's a big deal. It doesn't affect every aspect of the industry, but it's something to be considered for sure. But this general thrust towards low code, I mean, that's always been the idea since the early days of computing. You wanted to have some visual interface to facilitate the development of pipelines for whatever they are. Maybe it's data in this case, its functionality in other cases. But I'll bring in Raj Bains from Prophecy. You obviously saw this coming because you recognized in the industry there's tremendous value from these technologies, there's great value from the data. But if it takes too much time to go from one place to another, that just slows down the business. It slows down the enthusiasm. It kind of dulls the whole process and creates inertia. And that's kind of what we're spinning out of now. But what do you think, Raj?
I think actually picking off on the analogy you started with about cars, right? It's the big data world or the Hadoop world. Now, I was the Hive product manager at Hortonworks, so I know this world intimately. And the engineering perspective was, hey, you want to start a car? Oh, open up the hood, pull this cable. Didn't you know? Now go back to the trunk or the boot. It depends on which country you are in, Europe or US, right? And then you're like, pull that cable, pull this, and look, the car starts. And it's like, that's your job to build the bloody car so
That's
that
right.
your users are empowered. So I think as an industry, we've done a great disservice keeping things so hard, right? Keeping data, which has kept data out of many other people. And this thing is not rocket science. These tools can be built, right? And I'm coming in as a tool builder, right? Having worked on compilers and some other compilers democratized programming.
That's right.
Like I worked at Microsoft, right? That was like, compiling Windows down to hardware, or at NVIDIA building CUDA, which is all of deep learning. And I'm just looking at it and saying, we can build powerful tools, and I think it's a big disservice that we are asking somebody who's an expert in data and analytics to come in and say, now you learn the intricacies of our big data system and Hadoop. It's like, no, that's not their job. You've got to meet them at their skill set. So I think low code at the highest level is about that. It's about meeting people where they are, empowering them, allowing everybody in the organization to be productive with data.
Yeah, that's a real good point. Merv, come back in, Merv. Go ahead.
I remember those days when you were working on Hive, and I was speaking at Hadoop conferences, and probably the most popular slide that I ever used was a picture of a whole bunch of car parts spread out on a floor, and the title was "Introducing the Open Source Car." So, I'm very aligned with the idea that we want to make it easier. But if you really want to think about ease, take it even to a simpler transportation technology. Let's talk about the bicycle for a second. We're talking about taking off the training wheels to some degree, but at the same time, we're attaching a rocket to this bicycle. So, the possibility that we dramatically exceed our grasp of what we're working with is something that we have to be perpetually conscious of. As Eric pointed out, I've been at this for a while. When I wrote code, I was writing COBOL programs against file systems, and we didn't have any protections of the data. Whoever wrote the next program against that same file could do whatever they wanted to that data. And I might come back and find that somebody had decided to use one of my fields to put something else in. The good news about DBMSs was they created a set of policy enforcement capabilities that we could rely on when we wrote things. Simon, when we wrote that SQL, we had confidence that the description was accurate, that the constraints that we had designed were going to be enforced. Much of what's gone on with the data lake has been bringing in data that isn't in those kinds of containers anymore. And so if we don't provide those protections ourselves, if we don't compose the code that we write in ways that don't violate some policy that isn't explicitly managed somewhere else for us, we could get ourselves in trouble very fast. And I think it remains important that whoever uses these tools knows more than what the tool shows them and applies it wisely to the environment they want. And I think that remains one of the big challenges for the industry, is how do we expose for people in a user-friendly way, probably with a right click on something in a catalog, right? Mm-hmm. A way to understand the impact of what we're about to do. And perhaps even, Eric, in this age of generative AI, large language models that are making assumptions for us, maybe some of those same tools can be applied to saying, hang on, Merv, before you do that, recognize that this thing is covered by right to forget, and you need to make sure you have the audit trail when the auditors come calling.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, those are excellent points. I mean, we've got a pan-European panel here today, and GDPR is some very serious stuff. We have it, of course, in California with the Consumer Privacy Act. Governance is a big deal. And governance has been an afterthought, like generation after generation. It's like, oh yeah, the governance. Oh yeah, let me get back on that. Simon, I'll throw it over to you. We've got a few minutes left in the opening segment here. Governance should not be overlooked. You always want to be thoughtful about things. And I think the organizations that are in general have a pretty easy time navigating through changes. It's when you haven't thought things through that you get blindsided by stuff. But what do you think, Simon?
Yeah, and it's a tricky thing, right? As I said, with things maturing, with moving to a new tech stack, which is Lakes and Lakehouse enabled things and all of that, the things that you might have been really used to being able to do in a database, just have a look at your various databases and your schema and your various tables, are right to be forgotten. Is really easy in a SQL Server, in a relational database. Well, I say really easy, but there's established processes. You can update
relatively speaking.
Yeah. But if we're talking about lakes, well, actually, if a lake is a file-based process and we've got maybe my one table has 1,000 files in there, and I need to update a single record to say, well, that's now been forgotten, I need to go and find which file that record was in. I need to pull it up. I need to change it. The way lakes traditionally work is you can't update a file. You need to write a process that picks that file up, changes the data, and writes it back down again. Again, Iceberg, Hootie, Delta, all these things make that easier so you can write an update command in SQL, and it'll still do that. It'll still overwrite the file, and it'll do those things, but you don't need to see it. It's becoming easier and more accessible. But so like a lot of things is the processes haven't really changed. The idea of I need to go and update a record. I need to know where my data is. I need to know where I've got personal data anywhere in my data estate, be it a Lakehouse, a relational database, or some files I've got on my laptop. The processes stay the same. The hard thing is then taking that process and applying it to these different estates. And one of the hardest things enabled by allowing, kind of this proliferation of different tools is the proliferation of different data formats and standards and keeping things in different states. If we've got one team have got things in a database because they like databases and they've got those SQL skills. Another team is using a lake because they had a load of JSON or video data or something. Another team is using a different set. Managing those processes becomes a nightmare. And that's one of the biggest things about, this move to a Lakehouse, because you can have video data, you can have audio data, you can have JSON and a mix of things. You can have streaming data. You can also have relational data, but with the same governance and structures and things. So you've got one state, one place, one format for your data. And so it becomes easier.
Right. Well, and you've also, we'll talk about this in the next segment, you also have these layers of abstraction that you want. And like Delta Lake, for example, is a layer of abstraction, right? So you get these layers on top, which can serve as your governance, which can serve as your access, which can serve different purposes, but help you manage very complex environments and do so in a dynamic way. But folks, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. You are listening to DM Radio.
What if you could own a piece of...
All right, 1 down, 3 to go. That was great, guys. You're all naturals. We have actually a fun question from one of our studio audience members here who writes, trying to catch up between Microsoft Fabric and Databricks. Should we adopt one versus the other? We're interested in the streaming live table. What will be supported in each platform? I mean, there's a pretty detailed question. I'll throw it over to Raj to comment on. Any thoughts there?
I am not sure about the Microsoft Data Fabric. It's fairly new. It's been announced. It's built out of a few parts. So I think in typical Microsoft fashion, it's an intent and the direction that has been announced. With a V1 that will probably not quite work. But as they come back, directionally, they'll beat it up into shape. And I think the next generation, we wait for another a V2 or a V3 to come out. And I think that would be the right time for us to be able to look between. So I'd say, right now we could use what you have. I'd go with, I think Databricks is great.
So I'm a Microsoft MVP. I've been working with Microsoft on Fabric for the past 6 months. If you want to know what it is, I can give you a spiel.
Yeah. Well, real quick, we've got a couple of minutes in the commercial break here. So it's not built on SharePoint, right?
It is not. No.
Okay, good. That was my fear. Please, God.
I mean, a lot of it is the same engines as Synapse, but revamped into a more satisfied way to make it more accessible and all of that good stuff. It's taken all the success of Power BI and applying it to the engines that they've built for Synapse.
Interesting.
But it's just real focusing on making it easy for the user. So it has a Spark engine. It's got a much more simplified SQL engine that works on a Lakehouse. The biggest thing is all the data is stored as Delta. So no matter whether you're using Power BI, that reads Delta natively now, Spark automatically works on Delta, and SQL automatically works on Delta. It's a massive shift from Microsoft to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to have a SQL server. We're going to store everything in the lake using Delta, and that's big.
Wow.
It's kind of frightening when you think about it, because to your point earlier, Eric, we're talking about levels of abstraction. Microsoft Fabric lives at a very high level of abstraction and subsumes a lot of other componentry, including the things that Databricks has and the things that Power BI has and the things that the event stream has. There's a lot going on here. So knitting it together coherently and ensuring that all the pieces are integrated well, obviously will be a task that will go on for a while. I think for the questioner, the issue is to map the requirement you have to the tool you need to get that requirement done, is the first question. And then the second question is, can I do that in a context that gives me the protections and the universality that I want? I want this thing to play in my entire data ecosystem, my own, as well as perhaps my business partners and my customers. So all of that stuff needs to be exposed. And if I don't know whether it's exposed or not, that can be a little challenging.
But for me, the major thing is...
Go ahead. I got 30 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, we can pick it up in the next commercial. We're going to talk about it too on air. So hold on.
Yeah.
25 seconds. One of our attendees writes, Bill Inman believes that Databricks is the only genuine data lakehouse.
Who cares? Sorry, Bill.
He's an old timer, man. I remember the Inman Kimball days. I'm old enough to remember that. I think Merv might
spoke
be
at
too.
the first conference he did. Yeah.
Wow.
18. That's 800-254-3218.
Welcome back to DM Radio. Here's your host, Eric Kavanaugh.
All right, folks, welcome back to DM Radio. We're having a whale of a time here on the show with Raj Bains from Prophecy, Merv Adrian of IT Market Strategy, and Simon Whiteley. And Simon, your company is called again? Remind me.
It is Advancing Analytics. We thought we'd name it what it is on the tin, right?
Yeah, that's good stuff. Let's jump right back in here. We're talking about layers of abstraction and data fabric and all these fun concepts. And we want these pipelines, right? So that the more complex a system of components becomes, the more likely it is to sort of fall over. Now, of course, we have this beautiful thing called Kubernetes, which is container orchestration. And so you don't have whole sites crashing like you used to. You just have little bits and pieces of sites crashing, which I think is a tremendous move forward. And I kind of think we're seeing that in the data world as well, right? I mean, maybe one small part of this engine won't work like it's supposed to, but I can still get most of my job done. And I think that's in part because of lessons we learned through the Hadoop days, which, and I think most of the lessons there came in understanding highly federated environments, highly distributed computing, which is a whole separate set of challenges and functionality to tackle, as opposed to the old sort of monolithic way of doing things. So we learned a lot, and I think we're really now seeing all that manifest in the marketplace. But what are your thoughts, Simon?
I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that we've learned as data folks, right? Generally, the data industry's been years behind app dev in terms of coding and approaches and all of that stuff. A couple of big things there, so Hadoop and kind of the lake approach and all that kind of stuff. One of the big things you get is separation of storage and compute.
Right.
Being able to, you process your data and then you put it down. And then actually, if an entirely different process, a different tech stack, a different thing picks that data up and does the next part, that's fine as long as it puts it down in the same state. So we're talking about, you take a classic warehouse. We had a staging area, a cleaning area, and a warehouse area, and all of that good stuff. In a lake, people talk about medallion, they talk about bronze, silver, gold, we talk about raw, base, enriched. Whatever you happen to call the layers of your lake, you put your raw data somewhere, you pick it up, you clean it, and you put it down. You pick it up, you shape it into facts and dimensions or big wide reporting tables, whatever you happen to do. Now, the big thing is thinking about those processes as isolated steps. They are idempotent. You should be able to rerun it repeatedly and not ruin your data. It's a traditional data management approach. We're almost thinking about it like a microservice. So you're not thinking about my big end-to-end massive monolithic schedule. You're thinking about, I need to write a data pipeline that picks any bit of data up there, It cleans it and it puts it down. And that's what I need to think about. I need to test that. I need to make that repeatable. I need to make that reusable. And it's from breaking up the thing rather than having this gigantic end to end that you have to understand every moving part to going, well, actually, it doesn't matter if I'm cleaning that bit of data or that bit of data or that bit of data. What I'm doing is read some data from a place, apply some cleansing rules, write it down again. Or pick some data up, apply some transformations, apply some shaping and put it down. And starting to change how we think about data processing and data movement into it's a series of repeatable, testable steps.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's lessons from app dev and kind of, code development and how it didn't, which it took a long time for data folks to go, oh yeah, that's smart. We should do that as well. And it's kind of like a maturity evolution of how we think about these things into going, it's a piece of software. The other great thing is that people can use different things. So you can have a pro code, engineered, heavily written area moving your data from one stage to another, but you can have a low code thing moving your data from one stage to another. And as long as it reads from the same format, writes the same format, you can switch which bit of compute, which approach you use between steps A and B, as long as you've got that consistency of we're storing it in the same place. It doesn't matter. You can switch that black box in the middle out. And it's taken a long time for us to get to that point when we've got that flexibility.
Yeah, that's interesting. Merv, I saw you nodding your head there. You want to comment on that?
Well, first, Simon, you get the award for the $100 word of the day. I can't remember the last time I've had a conversation about idempotent stuff. That was great to hear. I think as we expand the scope from what data is already there to the processes that get it there and how those processes can vary, I think there are two current developments in the broader data management market that become really, really critical here. The first one is observability. I don't need observability for the data in place because I built a schema, right? I mean, that was the idea. I've already got something that describes what's in here. But when I don't have that, I need observability. And the automation that we're doing today is improving that dramatically. And the second one is search, because the observability may manage the engineering and the process for me in a very well understood way, but it probably doesn't tell me much about the content semantically. And so if I can weld those two pieces into this discussion, I think the degree to which the things we build are engineered for both observability and for search to be able to use them, we're really onto something. I think we're able to move forward with much more confidence.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Raj, I'll bring you back in. We're talking about these layers of abstraction, different sources, different targets. As long as you can manage that layer of abstraction in a clean fashion, then you can change the sources and targets. And let's face it, in the data world, 20 years ago, you had 4, 5, 6 sources of data coming from ERPs, coming from maybe clickstream analysis. Now you've got enterprises with 200, 300 different sources of data that aren't all going to kind of fit in that same old relational model, right? So, and all of that is useful data. I mean, Merv just mentioned observability. All of a sudden, there are 40, 50 observability vendors out of nowhere, largely because of Kubernetes, because it's so powerful. But guess what? It opened this Pandora's box in security and governance and other places. And now there's a whole ecosystem building around that, right? That was actually on your last slide, I think, Merv, you said it used to take a village, now it takes an ecosystem. But the key is that you want to keep certain environments clean, understand what they are, and then do that data movement in the pipeline, and ideally have it be low code. At least that's your view, right, Raj?
Yeah. So our view is that when we're talking about the layers, it's too low level, right? Yes, these layers are important. They are fundamental, but you're not thinking about storage versus transactionality, etc. in a database. That has been abstracted away from you. You're using SQL and perhaps transactions, but it's very simple. So the fundamental thing is, yes, these layers and the data lake and the Hadoop people, they've been kind of playing this inside baseball, for a long while. While the business teams, when we talk to our users, are like, hey, when do I get something in my hands? Like my analytics is taking forever. This Hadoop black box or this big data lake black box, I'm not getting anything out of it. So I would up-level this and say, you need more abstractions. The question that we've asked is, what are the right abstractions, right? The world has changed quite a lot. And to the point that you made, Eric, the sources are so much more. So what we looked at it and said is, okay, in the early to middle 90s, people were using SQL, they were using scripts, and then they said, you know what, bad idea. let us use tools. They went with ab initio, data stage. Majority of the industry moved to visual development tools, right? And then, okay, that's fine. Now we go back to the cloud and we say those tools don't work anymore. But we need new tools. So the question is, what does work? And so once we looked at it, we said, what is important? So this, when we look at the industry, we are like, to the enterprises who are moving, say, on the cloud, they don't want to be locked in. So they want code and they want the best software practices that everybody's got to have. Then they're like, I've got to enable all these sets of users, right? So low code is must. A lot of people must be enabled. Okay, that's fine. But now I have all these sources and some of these complex things that need to be done, and I need these power users. So we said, okay, so from the visual, you'll generate code. I'm coming from compiler background. I'm like, I can do that. But then people said, you know what? I want to create new visual components by writing code. So now you can write a Spark function as powerful as you want, for the power user. And you can say, now, this is a new visual component, and I will give it to the data analyst as a well-written component. So you can standardize. Once you run pipelines at scale, and the people we work with run tens of thousands of pipelines, you've got to have standardization. You've got to have these Lego blocks that you build stuff out of. And the power users in the data lake, the programming users, they've got to build the right standards, the right power blocks, and then enable all the rest of the business to use those blocks and build pipelines rapidly. So we've said, okay, the low code is a combination of this. It's not the visual ETL. It's something where you can quickly build visual pipelines, you get the code, and then using code, you can create new visual components. And of course, you have metadata across all of that. Right. And then so this is a new way in which we think we get the usability of a lakehouse and don't give up on any of the power of the lakehouse. I think that is the way going forward to solve this.
So whichever of these process models you're using, I think one of the questions everybody has to answer is, what's my certification process, right? You're making the point, I got to write good code. It's got to be, I don't want to do something wrong very fast and efficiently. I'd like to do the right thing fast and efficiently. I think one of the questions we all have to think about is how do we proliferate code that has been certified by some process within the organization, regardless of whether it was developed by hand, kind of, Simon's model, right? Or with some visual tools that have great power, the way you're talking about. At the end of that process, I think we need something that says, okay, we've examined this. It's certified. Everybody is free to use it. We're taking the training wheels off. We're putting the rocket on the back of the bicycle. And the good news is we know, we're going to go in the right direction and we'll be able to stop when we get there. Right.
If you go.
Yeah, go ahead, Raj.
No, so more like coming from now looking at a democracy, I have a lot of trust in people. When I'm very happy to put a rocket onto everybody's bicycle. We think very highly of all.
I can see why you're on Tatooine. Okay,
that's why I'm on Tatooine. But the thing is that the certification, right? We've seen this thing where you hit the knuckles with a pen and say, developer, you didn't write the right commit message, you didn't follow the right process. And we've been doing that for 30, 40 years. And what have we learned? It's never going to work. Right. So I look at that and say, you've got to assume that user's not going to do that. So what we've started doing is saying, oh, ML is here, LLMs is here. That is interesting stuff. What can we do with that? So one thing we're doing is we automatically write unit tests as you're developing pipelines for every transform. So every time you put your new changes in, it get tested against that, right? Then the next thing is we say, oh, we look at the profile of the data and say, do you want me to put this quality check? It's like, yeah, put that. And then it'll, every time you write data, that quality checks run. But if you do 80% of the work, the last mile, the developer will say, oh, I'll change this a little bit, right? And there's ML-based anomaly detection, right? So there's all these things that a machine learning, right? The metadata put together with the transformation layer can, you're writing a commit message. Guess what? I just wrote 50 lines of code, and now I have to write 30 lines of English describing what I did. You are making me repeat this whole thing. You can keep, hitting on the knuckles of the developers with your pencil, and it's not going to get any better.
No, but that's why God made ChatGPT. We can let it.
And that's why God made ChatGPT. It's like, I just wrote the damn code, right? Write me a good description of what the change was. So as this ML comes in, it's going to do that last mile, making things easier, helping people adhere to standards. And then one other thing that came up, as Simon was talking about code and Merv was talking about governance, is like, for example, on a data set, you can say this column is PII, right? And now, okay, you wrote a transformation, if you're using these standard level blocks, you can say, here is the lineage. Here is the lineage. I know where it's propagating to. And now you can say, okay, this data set had this column. And now these three data sets have these other columns, which now had PII information and therefore these restrictions. And that's got to propagate down. So that's why we are not a big proponent of the wild west coding, where you are like, I don't know where my PII data went, right? If you've got to have any kind of governance, you've got to have standardization. We don't believe that wild west coding is the way to go. Not that it gives you any more power, because even in a low code tool, you can create a visual repeatable component to do anything. Wild west makes governance hard. So we like low code.
Yeah, these are all excellent points. And again, what we're talking about is being able to expedite the value of data. That's what we want. Merv brings up some good points. We actually have a question from our audience, on one of our live studio audience members. And if you're driving down the highway listening, don't hop online. If you're in the passenger seat, fine, but not while you're driving, unless it's a Tesla and auto drive. Although I wouldn't test that personally. I don't trust it. That's just me. I'm cynical. But seriously, want to be part of the studio audience here? Just register for one of these events, and you can get in and be part of the action. But the Attendees Writing will Prophecy make certifications available for their product. Maybe we can pick that up real quick. We got 1 minute before the break. Go ahead, Raj.
Yes, we will. We do as a startup building stuff quickly. We are getting to all these things as fast as possible. The certifications will come. We are working on that. A couple of months.
It's part of the process.
It's important. It's important. It's like, I'm a certified at data transformation level. I'm certified to write standards and governance. And those people might say, I do SCD2 merge and define the standard in my company, and that requires a different level of expertise. So yes, we've got to kind of harden these levels of users and have certifications. Definitely
data literacy, right? This is all part of data literacy as well, understanding what are the component parts of an architecture, what are the component parts of a data solution, where do we need to put some policy in place. But there's so many ways to do things now. It's really moving so fast. Don't touch that dial, folks. We'll be right back. You are listening to DM Radio.
Do you own an annuity?
All right. 2 down, 1 to go. It flies by, as you can see. We're already 3/4 past the hour. So
I think there's an interesting
on
thing
the back of that. That's right. So on the value realization piece about how we enable people to actually start making use of the data before we think about governance and standards and stuff. I mean, that's something we work quite a lot with. So after break, happy to speak a bit on that.
Yeah. That sounds good. You're going to say something, Merv?
I think there's an interesting topic that comes out from something Roger was talking about, which is that there's an inheritance component. If I take something that has PII associated with it, move it and transform it, put it someplace else, that question goes along with it when I move it. That goes back to that point about observability. And there's an interesting notion of the combination of observability and auditability in an automated environment, where what I know about the thing I start working with, is it inherited by the thing I build or not, depending on how I wrote it? And you guys are in a position to help identify that and potentially warn the person who's writing that code that, by the way, you just lit this thing up. You need to know that that's there and do something about it.
Right. No, I think that so when we come back, I mean, this last segment is gonna fly by. So Simon, I like getting to you to kind of talk again about the value, close the loop on that front. And then, my take on AI and machine learning is a lot of that value is going to manifest in the form of suggestions, just like Merv mentioned. You're going to get a little note that goes, oh, just FYI, this is connected to that column over there, which is PII. Are you sure you want to do this? And you can override it But the nice thing about all these new environments, all this cloud-based stuff, is that all the metadata gets baked in of who did what, when, who touched what, where, and so that's your audit trail, right?
Agree.
Raj, anything in particular you want to cover in our last?
I think it's interesting how things like modern data stack are evolving, because they're all now piece components. And what you want is governance across. You want suggestions from metadata connected to transformation. You've got performance suggestions connected to this. And then the thing I think about is this disparate 10 different products the right way? If so much information needs to be communicated to make the transformations more productive, to warn people, as Merv said, about, hey, you're going to light this up there. If your metadata store is by vendor A and your transformation is by vendor B and your observability is by vendor C, it's going to be a mess, right? Lakehouse already is talking about bringing everything together, and now you go one layer above it and blow everything up again, and nothing's going to talk to one another.
Right.
I mean, that's the big point about Delta keeping the translog in the lake, right? It's not held in a layer. It's not held in a separate tool. It's just held as part of the files, as part of the file protocol. And it doesn't have everything in there. It doesn't have lineage, it doesn't have governance, but it's starting to, in terms of the audit log, who updated it, how much data, what the statistics. And that's just a maturity curve, right? It's going to get there.
Yeah. And we provide those things to the automated tools that are going to help keep us honest, and they can, if we let them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If we let them, that's a good line. Yeah. Humans do have a say in what happens, at least for now.
You can always override it and blow yourself up if you want to.
That's right. We don't recommend. Don't try this at home, folks. All right, we got 15 seconds here. Stand by.
You need a show called Stupid Data Tricks.
Jackass for data, right?
Yeah.
Remember those heady days?
Property qualifications. Not all borrowers will qualify. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to DM Radio. Here's your host, Eric Kavanaugh.
All right, folks, back here on DM Radio. What a lively show. We're talking to Merv Adrian, Simon Whiteley, and Raj Baines. And Simon, maybe I'll throw it over to you to get to close the loop on value. We're trying to get value from all of this. We want to understand, what are you trying to change in your business? And this gets into my favorite part of the data world, which is discovery, which is playing around with the data, looking at the data, try to understand, what are the trends, what does matter, where can we make money? And I tell you, in good times, anyone can be a good leader. In difficult times, that's when the true leaders kind of step forward. And I can guarantee you that 90% or more of the good leaders in at least big or data-intensive companies are going to understand data and the power it can play. And they're the business people. They want answers. They don't want to worry about the technical stuff. And what do you mean the ETL tool isn't working? That's not my problem. You guys solve that, get the plumbing done, and get me my data so I can play around with it. What do you think, Simon?
I mean, it's you need to be able to prove value fast. You need to be able to decide. I mean, so agile, right? We've been developing things for a long old time. And if you try and build some kind of data analytics project in a very waterfall way, it's going to take a long time, and people aren't going to see the value until the very end. That's the traditional way we used to build things. Like, right, you want this report? Yeah, cool. Okay, well, in 6 months, you'll get a report. And you'll tell me it's wrong, or we've moved on and things are different now, or you've done it the wrong way.
Right.
And so things shifted, and it became, the Wild West, right? Everyone's now empowered. It's now, self-serve analytics. Everyone can do their own analytics, and you've got no control and no governance. And then you realize actually no one can support these things. And again, it goes in waves like the rest of the industry. And we try and build things in that kind of governance has to allow for innovation. It has to allow for experimentation and analysis. You need to drive the fast realization of value of the data. So you can go, oh, actually, there's no value in this data. We won't bother building the thing that we're about to spend 2 months building. And that balance of empowering people to say, hey, look, I'm going to do my own experimentation. I'm going to build a quick prototype. I'm going to use a bit of Pandas, or I'm going to use a local tool, or I'm going to use my own reporting tool I found, or I'm going to bring it into Excel and just hack things around until it works. I don't care. That needs to be enabled. It needs to be allowed. And the whole then trick is going, if you're going to allow people to do that so that they get value, they get business, they can make a quick decision and go, right, we've reacted. actually, it'd be really good if we got this weekly or daily, or if this was real time. And that becomes the shift. So, we talk about that journey through the lake. We land, we get data in, we do some cleaning to it. We're not going to shape it and turn it into a curated data set until we know what we need to do with it. If you can give people access to the data in its earlier forms, and they can have a go, they can bring something. And it might be that they go, you know what? I'm really happy with that. I want to manage it myself. Or they might go, actually, I don't want to have to check that to run every day. Can you guys manage it?
Yeah.
And if it's then becomes this, kind of trade-off going, well, if we're going to manage it, then it has to adhere to our standards and it has to meet this thing and it has to have observability in it. But that becomes a trade-off going, actually, you can build centralization in when it's needed and it's worth it. You cannot do it if it doesn't need any. It was just a quick one-off experiment. But the big thing is not blocking that innovation. It's not slowing down when people see the value. Yeah, maybe to avoid not building things that didn't have value, or to actually iterate and go, actually, it was the third, fourth, fifth iteration that actually hit the nail and had the value, but we got there quicker because we didn't force them to go through the governance first.
Yeah.
It's about lowering the barriers to entry.
That's the positive side of governance that a lot of people who object to it need to hear, which is that better guardrails mean we can get there faster with more confidence. It's an enabler, not a blocker. Embrace it because it'll help you.
Yeah. Well, and cycle times have collapsed. I mean, and this is one of the challenges, I think, in the industry, because we have been around for a long time. We've been doing this stuff for 40 years. And the mindset of someone still stuck 40 years ago is not going to work today, man. The cycle times have collapsed from years to months now to weeks, quite frankly, or, like 2 weeks. If you can't get something spun up and show what you're trying to work on, you got to work on something else. What do you think, Raj?
So and they're going to collapse further. And this is some interesting stuff. So we, as many other companies, are building our own Copilot, right? So we are playing with LLMs, and there's some cool tech. So basically, now what you're saying is, yes, again, going back to that analogy of, are you going to force people for governance? But just like Simon said, you need people to be productive. So what you do is, if you have a low-code tool and you start with it, you can just write English now. You can say, hey, I'm looking for this. And if that generates 70-80% of your pipeline, a lot of the work's already done for you. But then if you're trying to read customer data, to Merv's point about governance, the ML can say, this is the customer data that has a very high quality report and 20 other users are using it. This is the customer data that I recommend you use. So as they start building these pipelines and, perhaps writing some English, the better governed data can be recommended. That kind of, this Copilot will come in and play some really interesting parts in nudging the user in the right direction, right? In getting them to use the nice governed data instead of them having to search and pick the wrong data. And then the other thing that I feel like, at least we've heard from a lot of users, to what Simon said, people want to play around and they want to quickly be able to, prototype something. But then some of them come back to me and say, hey, I like this now. I want to put it in production. And that doesn't have to be a waterfall process either. Because again, if you're generating high quality code and using the right components to begin with, well, you like it, put it in production, right? So that is just going to, so this large language models, the autopilot, the data copilots, they're going to accelerate stuff. And then moving from experimentation to production, if your experimentation stuff is using the right stuff and it generated great code, just put that in production. Why do you have to rewrite it? So this cycle time that you talked about, Eric, that is going to come down so drastically over the next few months. And then these days, it's funny, you don't talk about next few years. You're like, next right. I'm talking 3 months. I'm talking next 5 months. The speed is just tremendous of innovation around this.
It really is. And I think the business people love that. Business people don't want to wait. I'm a marketer, man. What's funny is I learned this term a few years ago called iterative marketing. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. What does that mean? I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's what I do. That's how I live. I don't like, people used to plan like 12 years out. I'm like, oh my God, you cannot do a 12-month marketing plan these days, or at least you can't if you want to survive in the real world. No, you got to move much faster because there's so many moving parts all around us, and just staying on top of that. So you have to stay focused. You have to know what's working, what's not working. You have to fail fast forward. You have to let your people, but to your point, Merv, the better the guardrails, the faster we can go. It's like seatbelts don't slow you down on the highway. They protect you for when you go fast, right, Murph?
Exactly. I don't want every project to be a trust fall exercise, right? I'd like to be comfortable that if I'm doing it the way I expect to do it, that there is some protection there and I can proceed with confidence. If I have to constantly go back and reaffirm my policy, reaffirm my security, that's going to slow me down a great deal. But if I have confidence that this is a safe zone for experimentation, I really can't go outside certain boundaries that I've established. I can be liberated to be much more productive and much more effective.
Yeah, and that's fun, right? I mean, Simon, I'll throw it over to you for closing comments here. Playing with data is fun when you can get somewhere, where you can test out ideas, see if it works. Okay, let's try this, let's try that. And to your point earlier, usually it's like the third or fourth iteration of something. When you finally get there, I mean, it's like writing a song. It's like doing any number of things. It takes a little time, but the easier you can play with that data, and if you have to wait for stuff, if you have to check in on policies and stuff, that just kills the vibe, right, Simon, real quick?
I mean, it's not even killing the vibe. It's just they'll find a way to do it elsewhere. And then you'll end up with people with their machine learning models on their desk, like laptop machine and hidden under their desk. I mean, it's like life will find a way, right? People will find a way to get around these things and actually because people want to deliver value and they'll find a way to deliver value. But if you can enable people to do what they want inside the ecosystem, so you get all the benefits of it being there, you get all the shareability of, one of our data scientists makes this awesome customer segmentation kind of thing, and they're just doing it as an experiment. And then someone else can pick it up and go, oh, I've got some great uses for this. And they wouldn't have seen it if people had to go outside that ecosystem. You talk about data discovery, having this shared platform, the shared innovation center, just gives you so much extra value. And it's like a snowball, it accumulates. The more people are doing in it, the more value other people see. And like, that wasn't useful for you, but I've got a use case for that. And that comes with visibility, comes with transparency, which is a terrifyingly scary thing in the data world. No, you're not allowed to see the data. Why do you want it? You're not gone through a business case. You've not asked for permission. But there's balances in terms of if you're confident about your data, you've got the right protocols in there. You can go, yeah, you can see it, and you're only allowed read access, and you can't see this bit of data. But we've got that mature process. You can enable people with the data to actually build that space. Yeah. And it's about thinking about what the wider benefits, rather than going, I've got a business case, in 6 months, I'm going to have this one deliverable. Because a lot of time you don't know what value's there. You don't know what value's hidden inside the data until people actually experiment and they go, I didn't realize that was there. We've never thought about it because we couldn't access it.
That's right. Well, folks, look these gentlemen up online, Murph Adrian, Simon Whiteley, and Raj Bains. Big thanks to our friends from Prophecy for allowing us to bring you this content free of charge. Look them up online, Prophecy. You've been listening to DM Radio.
In the know, I'm Sierra P.
That's a wrap, gentlemen. That was blast. That was fun.
That was fun invoking the shadow IT idea again. Hadn't heard